Welcome to another exciting episode of the Business of Digital podcast, featuring your hosts, Matt Siltala and Dave Rohr. All right, guys, it is that time of year to share some horror stories. The SEO Horror Stories of 2018, Dave.
I admit this was my idea. I am the lame one.
You didn't like my intro, though?
I did, but I just wanted to get it out there that I am the lame one that is, came up with this idea to attach it to.
No, I think it's good because I think there's a lot that can be learned from doing things wrong. For example, it's like some of my favorite sessions are like when I'm at a conference and when people share, like, for example, social media fails, okay? Like, they could go on and on, share 10 minutes of social media fails and how people did it wrong. And I will actually learn more from that and have more takeaways from that on what to do and what not to do and how to do things right than anything. So I love this topic, and I think people are gonna dig it. So or hats off to you for thinking of it. So, but before I turn the time over to you and let you start jumping into yours, I kind of wanted to start this off by, okay, it's not just an SEO horror story of 2018. It's an SEO horror story of a client from from 2007 to 2018. I don't know if there's a better way to put that, but and again, I know that he's not going to be listening to this podcast, and if he is, he probably wouldn't be too mad at me for joking with him. But a guy that I've done a lot of work for a long time. We kind of have a little trade going on, but it's where I am not by any means paid to take care of, and I want to throw this out there because it is just a small little trade, and the fact that I do what I do and pay attention to the things I pay attention goes well beyond anything that this man does for me or pays or anything like that. And so this is mostly just done because of our friendship, but talk about a horror story. It's funny, like some of these things that go on all the time. I'll get texts, hey, I'm not coming up in Google anymore when I type my name. Can you see if something's wrong? And I'll go, the first thing I'll do is I'll go check his website. Website's not there, doesn't exist. Email back, so can you tell me why your website's not even on? That could be a reason why you're not coming up. Oh, I think I did get an email a couple weeks ago about needing to pay for the domain or something. I don't know. Maybe I ought to look into that. Maybe you oughta. Or things like every time, I need a password, they don't know what the password is. Hosting information is always changing. Anytime anything's done, I'm never told. Anyway, I just thought it's funny, just kind of like when we're talking about SEO horror stories, we can't even get away from it from our closest, best friend people, no matter how much I try to get things set up right. He's always doing something to jack me, but yet I'm always managing to somehow keep him in the top. But the funniest one was the other day when he said he was bragging on a friend of me, and he said I was typing it in and specific keyword phrase that he gave me, and I'm not found anywhere. And so I typed it in on my phone, first result in the maps, and I sent it to him, and he's like, oh, yeah, okay, good job. He's impressed. And anyway, it's just stuff like that, Dave. And so I don't know. I wanted to kick it off with that, and just kind of, it's a funny experience, but they're not all fun and they're not all funny. So I'm going to let you dive into your stories and we'll go from there.
I may have had that happen on my dad's website, and that was my fault. It dropped, and he was like, my site's down. I was like, what? Because I'd been moving most of my domains over from one registrar to another, and I'd been updating the email address.
Yeah.
And for some reason, that domain he had registered it and was on a weird registrar. And it was the one that I only did every year when it comes up. And I always forget about it. And then within certain many days, you can't change it to the different registrar. And I just completely forgot and missed the email. Oops. And then he was like, my site's down. And I had to go and spend $120 to, get it back, so it didn't drop completely.
So what you're saying is some of these horror stories are self-inflicted.
That one was, yes. And that was part of, and I can talk about, I was you already jumped a couple. But just letting domains expire. One thing is if you can, and that was, again, I was moving most of my domain. I'd moved most of my domains to one new different registrar. I had it in like 3 or 4 different ones over the years. It's like you get a coupon and you're like, oh yeah, I can save a whole bunch of money. And then 4 years later, 5 years later, it's still there. So I finally moved most of them over, and that was like one of the few that I hadn't yet. And of course, that's what happened, like worst case scenario. But if you're at a larger company or even a smaller company and you don't know who manages it from year to year, day to day, set up, and you should do this for a lot of things, set up a marketing at your domain or SEO team or something, admin of web at your domain, and have it be a distribution list and have it email you at multiple email addresses and maybe other people on the team. So anytime that domain is going to drop, or if Google sends out something from your Google Webmaster or something like that, have that email on all of these different accounts so that not just a single person gets it, but that distribution gets it, so that no matter if everyone on the team is on vacation but you or but one person, they still see it.
No, that right there is a great point. I can't tell you how many times that has saved me when I've dealt with situations like this where I've just said, hey, like, I need to be added in as the admin for these reasons, everything that you just listed. And, sure enough, something like that will happen. And I'm one of the ones emailed, and I saved the day. And so, yeah, great point.
And I just got an email, and I know we're talking SEO's horror stories, but I just got an email from a client that is on hiatus working with me. They just very limited budget. So their PPC was just dinged, and it's been sitting there I haven't even looked at it in 6 months, I don't think, or maybe even longer now. But something is being flagged. So I sent them an email last week or over the weekend or something recently. And I was like, hey, this came in. I don't know if you saw it, but you have 2 weeks to take care of it. Otherwise they're going to shut down your AdWords. It's like, whoops. So, having multiple people pay attention to with multiple email addresses, someone is bound to catch it. So that's the first thing. Even in 2018, that's still a problem.
Well, one of the things that I learned this year so far at all the conferences that I spoke at is this is still a problem with clients wanting to produce content just for the sake of producing content, okay? And for me, being a visual content person, this is like a nightmare or a horror story. Like, I'm with you guys. Like, one of our core competencies at Avalanche Media is infographics. But I'm going to be the first to tell you, I freaking hate infographics that are done wrong, okay? Now, infographics or graphics or anything in general, video, things like that, that's done right, is amazing. And so what I've been really trying to hit home to people, because again, you and Dave, you probably have these same exact stories of people coming to you saying, hey, I need to create an infographic because I heard that I'm supposed to create an infographic. Okay, well, why? Like, what's it going to do for you? How, like, what's the point? Anyway, so you have all these
10 years ago, you were supposed to create an infographic to create an infographic. Now you have to create an infographic to answer a question, to do something.
No, yeah, you're exactly right. 10 years ago, you were supposed to create an infographic so we could get it on the front page of Dig and shut your server down.
Yep.
Not so much anymore. So you touched on exactly what I was going to get into. Whether it be an infographic or a video or a pitch deck or a white paper or a whatever, just insert piece of content here. You have to have a point. Okay, like you said, answer the question. Are you providing a solution? Is the point of this piece of content to generate leads? Is the point of this piece of content to generate sales? Are you doing it for community building? Are you doing it for brand building? Is this something that you're doing for reputation management? Are you doing it for links? Are you trying to build links? Are you trying to get, social proof? What is the point? And again, once you answer that question of what is the point of this piece of content, then it's fine. Then you can produce it. Because we've had companies that have come to us and like, we need to create an infographic, and we're like, okay, well, let's do it. Like, what's the point? And if the 10 years ago, need to create an infographic doesn't work in this situation, because they actually wanted to create an infographic because they were going to use it in an internal. This was a huge company. They were going to use it in an internal training of like 10,000 employees. And so that's why it's important to know what the point of this piece of content is. It's not always, for the old school reasons. And I think so many people coming to us, they'll read something from years ago, or they'll hear something and it's out of context or whatever, and they're wanting to do it just because they heard that they have to do it, and they're not answering those questions. And so again, like, I love the notes that you have here, Dave, in this one. Be awesome. And it's true. With stuff like this, you need to be awesome. And again, I'm not going to go into all of it again, but if you can be awesome with your content and answer that question, and it can fit one of those ones, and you have that side of it taken care of, then that really is in my book exactly where you need to be going. So I don't know if why don't you go into some other horror stories?
I've seen it for years, going back to when I first started, and I still see it now. And it's, if you hire a plumber or an electrician and they come to your house and they tell you something and you don't like it, get a second opinion. But don't just say no and then do it yourself. Or, if you hire a professional, most likely, unless they're really trying to rip you off, you should be listening to them. And what drives me crazy is that's a outside person, get a second opinion. If you don't trust your agency, why do you have them?
Yeah.
For PPC, social media, for whatever. If they're telling you to do something and you don't trust them to do it, why are you working with them? Whether it's them or issue with them, or it's an issue with you, I don't understand.
Because then you're going to be the first to fire them when something's not done, but it's your fault because you didn't do what they told you to do.
Yeah. Or if you have an internal person, even if they're a junior person, and they produce, and I understand if they just hired them, a PPC person or someone for CRO or social media, and they have this idea, and you're like, oh, you just started, you don't know what you're talking about. But if you hire anyone, even a senior person, and you do the same thing to them, I start to wonder if the reason why your business isn't growing is not because of them, it's because of you. If you hire a professional, or you hire someone that's supposed to know this stuff, and then you never trust anything they ever say, why are they there?
Yeah.
Like, why do you always have to have your internal person either go and find someone that's written about it to back them up? Because I've had to do that before, which I didn't understand. Or have your internal person and then have to have the agency say the same thing. Because I've had to be that agency person that basically took my internal contacts thing that they've been circulating, add some to it, put it on our agency, letterhead, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, literally half of it was your person's exact words. I just added some additional examples, but literally it was their words.
Wow.
Like, the main thing was their words. And so I still see it today, people not trusting their internal people. And maybe it's because they don't like the price tag, they don't like what they're saying. And sometimes I can understand that, but when they do it time and time again on every little thing, that to me is a problem. Either if you trust them, let them do their job and let them fall on the sword if it doesn't work, or, part ways and find someone that you do trust.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
I don't know what else to say to that. And that's kind of like the next thing I still see is not thinking long-term. When you're setting up a site, if you're moving to a new site, the first questions I start asking is, what new business lines are you going to be adding? What new products are you going to do? Are you going to be doing multiple languages? Because now is the time for us to set it up. Like, if we're the last thing an SEO wants to do, like 95% of the time, is we don't want to do is to change URLs. And I've worked with some companies that have done three migrations of the main site in the last 2 years, 2 or 3 years, from different CMSs and everything. We changed the URLs like long ago. And even though we changed different CMSs and we changed themes and we changed everything else, we've kept the same URLs.
Yeah.
Because that's where all the links are. That's where the internal links are. That's where everything ranks. We don't want to touch that stuff. But if you don't think long term and suddenly you're changing your products, you're changing your business lines, you're changing everything after you do that migration and after you change some URLs, and suddenly it's like, oh, well, you know, we launched the CMS 3 months ago and we thought we might be doing English and Spanish, but now we're going to do English, Spanish, and French and German. So we need to rethink how we have this set up. Like, no,
You know,
we should have known about that 4 months ago, 6 months ago, that it was even a possibility.
Well, when you're talking about all this, it reminds me of Ryan, our friend Ryan Jones, and how, you know, he laughs and he's sharing the, you know, I don't know if you'd consider him black hat tactics, but he's sharing the stupid things that companies do sometimes, like when they're about to do new sites or whatever, they'll just have like they'll forget to block out URLs in their robots or whatever, and so these get indexed, but then they'll also do things like whatever it is, URL/beta, and they'll be able to go in and see exactly what the competition's planning on doing or whatever. And, you know, it's just kind of, you could take precautions for this kind of stuff to not happen, password protect or exclude it in the, you know, so it doesn't get indexed or whatever. But these are, I know a lot of people have had some horror stories from just stupid, you know, not doing the little things, stupid stuff like that.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago, but I worked with a company that had their original site live and it had millions, like literally millions of pages. And they had just, quote unquote, sunsetted their new version, like the second version. And were contacting me to help them with their third version because they had built it in all Ajax. Uh-huh. And we're curious why the new site wasn't getting indexed, but the second version was still getting indexed in all the traffic. And they didn't honestly even know that the first version was still out there. They'd never done a single redirect. So there was 3 versions of the site. One of them that they wanted to get indexed wasn't, because it was in JS, and this is some years ago. And we're confused as to why, you know, they couldn't get the things crawled. I'm like, well, because you have 3 versions of the same content out there with 3 different sets of URLs, and all of them are out there. Nothing's ever been redirected. Like, talk about horror story.
Yeah. Well, I just laugh at how sometimes some of the simplest of things, just like removing a line in your robot's text file, or, you know, just like simple things that happen all the time. Like one of the things you have mentioned here is not registering, and we've talked about a little bit before, or letting domains expire, not redirecting, things like that. Dude, like how many times, and maybe you can finish up on this point, but how many times have you seen the horror stories happen because of just like the little simple things that people are not doing or ignoring?
Yeah, like if your developers, whether it's your IT team or your own, you know, web ops marketing team, pushes something live, please check it. Make sure that, you know, that robots that's on your dev site or your test site or your QA site or whatever didn't get pushed up that blocks the site. You know, do a crawl and make sure that not everything on the site is set for rel canonical to the homepage. And
test it everywhere, not just on the desktop. Look at it on your mobiles.
I know someone that saw that this year. I know someone else that found in the last year deep in the robots file that basically blocked Google from most of the site.
Oh my gosh. That's a horror story.
Yep.
That's like the best horror story, blocking Google.
Yep, blocking Google. Deep in the robots.txt, they were blocking it. And I also know someone else that found that every page on this site, when they did an update, had the rel canonical set to the homepage for every single page on the site.
Also, a very good reason why audits are a huge deal. Anyway.
Yeah, monthly crawling your site, weekly. Yeah, I mean, it's 2018 and these things still happen. Sometimes they're just oversights, or someone was supposed to do something, and sometimes people just don't have any sort of checklist or any sort of QA after something goes up. Or sometimes I've had IT push stuff live, and I come in on Monday morning and I find out that if you don't type in www, the 404 and then what did they do? A 301 or 302 you to the homepage.
Wow.
So if you went to non-www something.com/product/whatever, but you didn't have the www, and it didn't matter if you were Google or a user, you got redirected over to the homepage.
Wow.
And they just decided to do that on a Friday night, Saturday over the weekend. And I came in on a Monday and found that.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. So be friends with your IT department. But yeah,
that's right.
I think there's probably more horror stories we could go into, but I think those are some of them. And some of them are big and some of them are basic, but it's, the more you monitor your site, the more you poke at it and carefully watch it. There's different tools that can, check your robots for changes. There's different tools that can monitor your site, or you can set up, routines to crawl it, or just do a spot check every Monday morning and check on different parts of the site, just to make sure that, you're not shooting yourself in the foot.
Well, excuse me. What we'd like to put out there, obviously, too, is, if anybody has any questions like this, or anybody has any horror stories, we'd love to hear about them. Just tweet us, drop us a comment or whatever, and would love to get into it. Also, if you have any questions or if you have any issues that you're dealing with that you just can't figure out, obviously, Dave and I both run businesses, and so reach out to us. Let us know how we can help, and we'll see what we can do to help you as well. So anyway, for Dave Rohr with Northside Metrics, I'm Matt Silzel with Avalanche Media, and thank you guys for tuning in on this edition of the Business of Digital podcast, and we will see you on another one. Bye, guys.
Bye.